Ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching all of Dexter in its entirety, including New Blood, so today we are doing a tier list ranking all of the seasons. So let's jump in. This is a no-nonsense sort of video. Here is the list. We have S, A, B, C, D, D being poop, S being incredible, and we have seasons 1 through New Blood, which is season 9, so you get the gist. So we're just going to jump right in. Season 1 is an S tier season. I do genuinely think that this show came out swinging with its first story. Obviously, with everything we got there, whether it was the addition of characters like Dokes, whether it was Rudy, Brian Moser, or whether it was just the introduction to this world of Dexter in Miami with the homicide department, everything worked here. It really was a magical season because you had something that carried through the entire show. It was this magic element where all the plot pieces just seemed to work and flow together really well. Dexter season 1 just absolutely nailed that, and I liked everything from Dokes being suspicious of Dexter to obviously Brian Moser and the ice truck killer overall, and where that brought the story to us discovering that Brian Moser is Dexter's brother, and Dexter has to make a really tough decision to kill his brother or to kill Deb by the end of it. And I think it really worked very well, and it's kind of like a lightning struck in a bottle. There's another season we're going to get to of the show that is like this, but this one is definitely special for that, and you got to give it all the praise in the world for that. The next one up we have is season 2 of Dexter, and this is a really tough one for me because obviously if you were to give it anything other than B, that's a crime, but I don't know if it's S tier or A tier. I'm stuck in the middle. I'm going to put it in A for now, but that absolutely may change. I think one of the best things about this season was Lila. Lila was an incredible character, and she was just really fun to follow because you had this like psycho following Dexter, and it still had that magic spark that season 1 had of the show. It was just a little different. You know what? Okay, yeah. It's an S tier season. I have to do it. It is absolutely an S tier season. I loved the dynamic with Lila, but even more than that, I loved Dokes this season because it worked so well. And when you think of what we should have got in terms of Dexter in general with this whole manhunt story, the closest we got was Dokes, and it played very well on screen. All of the elements worked so well to tell that story, and I'm really glad they did, and I even love where that ends because you have this whole story of the introduction of the Bay Harbor Butcher, you have Dokes going after Dexter, and you have Lila, who's obsessed with Dexter, then starts to go after him by doing things like setting the house on fire with Cody and I think Astor in there, or one of them. That whole thing was really awesome. Then how at the end, Dokes got framed in a really tragic turn of events because Dokes was a great character. It all just flowed well. It was dynamite. You could say that about the earlier seasons of Dexter to begin with, but season 1 and 2 really have that it factor that not a lot of the other seasons do. Season 2, actually, this is going to sound crazy, I'm putting it ahead of season 1. I really liked the stakes this season, and if they had kept that momentum for the whole series, this would have been like a perfect show. Obviously, you can't do that. Some seasons are going to have to explore other things, and the directors and writers, they all went different directions, but season 2 was just a really good season, and it really stuck out to me. I absolutely loved it. Season 3, on the other hand, I know people claim this as one of the greats, but on my first viewing, I think it's a C tier season. I really do. I don't think it's anything special. Miguel's storyline was not interesting to me at all. It was just annoying, and it was a really boring setup. This was the most painful season for me to get through, outside of some of the later atrocities after season 4. But season 3 it didn't do anything that I enjoyed at all. There was nothing there. Miguel was cool, interesting, but like not in the same caliber as seasons 1 and 2 by any means, shape, or form. This was like the dud of the early days of Dexter for sure, and I don't really have much else to say about it. That's just how I feel. Up next, we have season 4. Season 4 is an obvious S tier, and actually this is going to go at the tippity top of my S tier. This list may look a little ridiculous to you already because it's S and then 1 C, and we're already on 4 seasons, so yeah, I don't know. My thing with season 4 is this is literally lightning struck in a bottle. It's like the epitome of something like Better Call Saul to me that's lightning struck in a bottle. I know that analogy doesn't make much sense, but everything worked here. The Trinity Killer was the best story of the entire show, hands down. John Lithgow just did such an incredible job playing Arthur this season, and just in general, what we got with right from episode 1, where we pick up with the introduction, which is the intro theme song, but it's done in a different way, where Dexter is now a dad and he has to deal with life being married to Rita with his own son, as well as Cody and Aster in the house, having to keep a secret from all of them, which obviously it's a little outlandish. Like in the real world, Rita would have caught on to him a long time ago. But regardless, I liked everything they explored this season with his dynamics with Rita, the Trinity Killer overall, and that tragic ending at the end. Everything was just on point here. And one of the standout moments, obviously, is when Arthur comes into the homicide department and says, "Hello, Dexter Morgan." Freaking phenomenal. Everything about this season was just dynamite. There's no way that this season could be anywhere else. Let's just put it that way. It really is that freaking good. I absolutely loved it. And then season 5, I know this was like apparently the start of the decline of Dexter, but I absolutely loved this season too. This is going in my A tier. It's not on the same quality as the Dynamite seasons, but it is good. Like, it's a very good season of TV. I did enjoy it. I loved Lumen. I loved the dynamic that Dexter had with Lumen. And I loved how everything picked up right where season 5 left off. And we got the immediate aftermath of obviously Rita's death and how that shaped Dexter into where he went. And yeah, you can make an argument that it was kind of insulting to Rita that he would go right with Lumen. But the way that they told that story and the way they pinpointed it, where Dexter was, obviously not using Lumen, but essentially Lumen was like a vessel for him to feel better about him literally causing Rita's death. It just worked really well. I liked I forget the name of the bad guy this season. It's on the tip of my tongue. Jason, something like that. Chase, whatever. I loved that storyline and I thought it worked really well. And yes, it wasn't the same as the others, but this one was really fun to me and I thoroughly enjoyed watching it for sure. Season 6, on the other hand, that is a D tier for me. That is a horrible season. There was everything about season 6 just sucked. It had the same boring element as season 3 did for me personally. I did not enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the Doomsday Killers at all. Like Geller and Travis were awful cartoon villains. Couldn't stand them. That was some Fear the Walking Dead writing bullshit, like no joke. It was that bad, and I just didn't enjoy anything they did. The only redeeming factor, but it still keeps it in the poop tier, it really does, but the only redeeming factor is the last 30 seconds of the season when Deb walks in to Dexter killing Travis. That is literally it. Like, no joke, that's it. Everything else, complete utter trash, and I had a really hard time getting through the season for sure. Season 7, though, I know this is kind of a controversial one for sure, but I actually think season 7 is on par with season 5. In my opinion, it's a little bit better personally, because I fucking loved Hannah McKay. I thought that was just an incredible storyline, and I thought similar to season 2 of the show, where we finally had Miami getting involved with Dexter, we had LaGuerta realizing that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher, and that was just such a fun thing to follow. So you have a couple elements here. You have, in my opinion, you have Hannah McKay, who was a phenomenal character, and who was, I think, the best couple to Dexter, period. Like the best partner, I guess you could say, to Dexter. I just thought that worked really well. And then LaGuerta coming down on Dex was really cool, as well as something that I was waiting for the entire show, whereas the people that he's allies with start to realize who he is. So Deb was a big factor here, and her reactions to Dexter being the Bay Harbor Butcher and how she has to cope with that was just so good. And then again, the tragic way that this series or this season unfolded was just so sad that Deb made that decision to kill LaGuerta instead of Dexter. I really think you could have ended the show if Deb made the decision to kill Dexter in that moment instead. That would have been, I think, like a near perfect way to end the show, other than I would have loved to have seen like Batista's reaction and things like that. But this season was really solid. It doesn't have that like dynamite factor that season 4 or season 2 or even season 1 have, but it's, to me, it's very close, and I found myself enjoying this just as much as the others. I know when I made the review, I had said that season 7 may be my favorite season of Dexter, and I still think that's true, but I don't think it has that same dynamite factor that something like season 4 has. So while my personal preference may be, and I haven't made that mind up, but it may be that season 7 is my favorite season, that doesn't necessarily mean it's like an S tier season, because there was definitely flaws this season. Unlike something like season 4, I just had that preference towards it. But on paper, like, it definitely has to have a step down because it wasn't the same as something like a season 4. Season 8, on the other hand, is absolute doo-doo. If I could make a death poop tier list, I don't know what that would even mean, but like smellier than poop, I would put it there. It was fucking awful. And I just put out my review of season 8, so definitely check that out. I'm going to link it up here for sure. Check it out, because I go in depth ranting about it. Enough said, this was the worst ending of any TV show I have ever seen. It was absolutely horrible, and for it to be the final season of a show, it was just pathetic. It was not a final season. It was just a regular season. And obviously I know you're looking New Blood's down there too, so it's really not the final season, but for 10 years, it was the final season of Dexter. And it deserves to be treated as badly as it does. It was fucking awful. It was absolutely, absolutely abysmal. Just ridiculous. But then we have New Blood, and believe it or not, this is the most torn I am. Before I pick a ranking, I want to go over why. New Blood was not obviously Miami. So it didn't have the same color grading. It didn't have the same thematic approach that all of the other seasons, even season 8 of Dexter, had. It was obviously like an epilogue. It was its own kind of thing. And I don't think I could rank it in like S tier or anything like that because of that, because it's just not what I loved. You know what I mean? But for what it was, I thought it was fantastic. For the story they told, albeit I didn't want that exact story to be told, but for the way it was told with the, circumstance that it was, and Clyde Phillips having to, make up for the fact that characters like Deb are dead and that certain elements already happened, so he can't give the proper ending that he wanted, at least in this season. I thought this was so great with rekindling the relationship between Harrison and Dexter being on the run, and him being in the small town of New York juxtaposed to Miami. In here, it's like weird color grading. You have the snow, you have all of that. And it was just a totally different theme. And again, for those reasons, I can't put it in the same quality that you would, I don't know, any of the other seasons of Dexter, like the main show. But I think this one, for what it was, I think it goes in B tier. I really liked the story they gave, but to be the ultimate conclusion to the show, I'm not sure how I feel. Was this the better ending to Dexter than season 8? Absolutely. I think it was, and I understand that there's an argument there that people didn't get what they wanted and they thought this ending was like a second time it being like a terrible ending to the show. I could see those arguments and I understand that, and I haven't even posted my full review of this season yet, but in my first impressions having finished this season today, I'm okay with the ending. It's not what I wanted at all, and I'm still upset, and I know Resurrection comes. I just started Original Sin, so I know Dexter obviously doesn't die in season 8, 9, which is ridiculous, but pretending I didn't know that, if this was the way that Dexter did die, yes, I'd be mad that it wasn't in the hands of Miami County and all of that stuff, sure, and there was no manhunt, but I actually really liked the poetic nature of this, being that Harrison was the one to kill him. I thought it worked so well for what it was. Not what I had hoped at all, but for what it was, I really enjoyed it, and I had fun watching it. This was like a movie. This was kind of like The Ones Who Live, like The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live of Dexter, and I thought on its own it stood well, but when you factor in all of Dexter and what it should be for what it was, it's definitely, you can't put it any higher than that. But yeah, This was a quick video, relatively, for a tier list. I mean, 14 minutes, that's a lot shorter than my regular tier lists, for sure. But that's my list. I really do, like I said, I think Season 4, Season 2, and Season 1 are the god tiers of Dexter. Season 7 and 5 are a step down. New Blood is a step below. Season 3 is a C tier. And then the awful seasons are 6 and 8. That's how I feel. I would love to know your tier list down below in the comments, so be sure to leave that there. And with all that out of the way, thanks again for watching this video, and until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.